How's it going, guys? Welcome to today's video. As small farmers and ranchers, we need to do everything that we can to save money, be more efficient, and in turn be more profitable. I don't know if you guys can see, I got something here in the back of my truck. I'm going to show you what it is and how it's going to change things here and help me achieve those goals. That's what we're talking about today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. So when I first saw this thing, I would not have had any idea what it was or what it was for if I didn't already know. But I don't know. Any of you guys seen one of these before? Know what it is? What it's used for? This is my new hammer mill. You guys that were part of the live stream probably guessed that's what it was because I talked a little bit about it then. But what this is used for is for taking like whole corn, or in my case it's probably going to be mostly whole rice or wheat, and it'll grind it up into, you could grind it into a powder if you wanted to, but it just grinds it up into smaller pieces that make it a lot easier for the animals to eat whatever you're giving them. So you guys can probably see by the fresh metal here that I have had to do some work on it, but I mean, shoot, the thing's from the early 40s, so you know, I'd be pretty surprised if I didn't have to do any work on it. But let me get it down out of the truck and give you a little bit closer look and show you some of the things that I've done to it and kind of show you how this thing works. So there is the Minneapolis Moline hammer mill. Couple things to look at here. This shaft, you can see, is way longer than it needs to be. The reason for that is that these hammer mills are so old. Best I can find, they were made between 1940 and 1942. So to put it in perspective, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, this hammer mill was around. But they used the one of those wide, like 4 or 5 inch wide belts that ran off the flywheel of the tractor to turn these things. That's why that shaft is so long. But as you can see, that is not what I'm doing. I'm trying to set this up to run off of PTO power. So basically my goal is to, on this shaft, I can't turn it right now, but I want my PTO shaft to hook up right here to this 1¼ inch keyed shaft, which as it spins turns this belt back here, which turns the hammers inside here. I think I'm going to set this thing in the shop. We can look at it a little bit more. While I'm doing that, I'm going to show you guys a few clips from when I was working on this in the shop at work, building the shaft and doing a couple other things. This is the drive shaft for the hammer mill. I'm still working on it. I need to turn this end down a little bit more, but this will be the pulley side, which I've turned this down to 1¼ inch. The center is 1½ inch. That's what size bearings I'm using, and then I'm going down to 1¼ inch here as well. Just need to cut a keyway on this end and on this end, and this shaft will be done. All right, this keyway is done. This is the start of the hopper basket. I, for some reason, lost some of the clips on this, but you guys will see it when it's done. This old ducting is really thin. It's got some holes in it, crack. It's bent pretty bad, so I think I'm just gonna have to make a whole new duct elbow. So I'm starting the new elbow here. Once I get these 2 side pieces figured out, the rest should be pretty easy. All right, I got the sides tacked in now. Looks pretty straight. There's actually some kind of funky geometry going on here, but Yeah, I think we got it. All right, now we got this thing in the shop. Let me open up the hood and kind of show you how it works. So you may notice on this side of the hammer mill, because I'm putting it right in the center of the frame, that you have this big gaping hole here, and that's where your grain is going to pour in. Now obviously you wouldn't be able to feed that much grain in. I've got a solution to that problem that I'll show you in a minute. But this is the entrance into the hammer mill. Now I'm going to pull this hood back just to try to give you a little bit better idea of how this thing works. So as the grain is being poured in the hammer mill, these hammers are spinning at, they recommend about 2,500 to 2,800 RPM. Now I'm powering this off of 540 PTO, so obviously I had to do a little gear increase here, and what I have here is about 2.5 to 1 increase, almost 3 to 1. It's somewhere in there. Anyway, it's not going to quite get me to that recommended RPM, but I think I'm going to be okay, because the high RPM is more for the fan over here that we'll talk about in a second, not so much for the hammers. As long as they're spinning, and I mean, it's going to have a 60 horse diesel engine spinning it, so I don't think you're going to be able to bog those down. But as long as these are spinning, they're going to grind the grain up and do the job. So one piece that I am missing right now is down in the bottom here. There is supposed to be a screen. The purpose of that screen is it doesn't allow any of the product to go through the bottom until it's reached the desired size. So like if my screen has 4mm holes, nothing can get through there until it's ground down to 4mm, whatever size that you decide. For the pigs, it's probably going to be somewhere around there, like 3 to 4 mils. Should be just about right for them, and chickens too. I mean, that would be the equivalent of like crumbles. So after the grain is ground up enough to where it can fall through the screen that's not currently there, this fan here all the while is sucking air down through the hammer mill, and it's sucking all of that grain up through this duct into the fan and out this discharge. So once the grain comes out of the discharge here, after that it's kind of up to you however you want to set it up. What most people do is they have it come straight up and it'll go into a cyclone or into another bin, and then it's ready to feed the animals at that point. What I will probably do is make another smaller bin, probably about, I know the rest of the world deals in bushels. I don't really know what a bushel is, because with like rice and wheat, we deal with sacks, which is 100 pounds. So I'll probably have this dumping into a 20 sack bin. Sorry, basically it's 4x4x4. That's what it is. Okay, so now is where I have a question for you guys. I don't know if anyone out there has used one of these before, but you can see the fan pulls from right there. And then on the other side, we have this door here. And I think what this door is for is to adjust how much air that the fan gets. But I really don't know if that's what it's for, so I've been scouring the internet trying to find an owner's manual for this, and I actually can find a picture of one, but I can't find where I can actually order one. So I think that's what that door is for. The way that they've got it to where it kind of slides, it's like they made it that way on they had to go out of their way to build it like that. So I'm thinking that it's something to do with adjusting the air that goes to the fan, but I really don't know. So if you guys know, let me know in the comments, because I'm really scratching my head on this one. So and here we have our PTO shaft and pins, and what I plan to do is make a frame for this to sit on, where the PTO can plug right in there to that shaft, and I can just carry this thing around with the tractor pretty easily. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close the hood back up, because I want to show you guys how we're going to feed the grain into this thing. So during this video, you might have noticed this little hopper basket sitting on the ground behind me. And yes, you guessed it, that's what is going to be used to feed the mill. So let me put it up there and I'll give you a better idea of how I've designed it to work. I think it's going to work good. If you guys see any problems with it though, let me know. All right, so this should be pretty self-explanatory. Oh, I've got a lot of leaves in there. That's nice. So anyway, the grain's going to go in here, and then I put a little slide gate here in the bottom that I can kind of meter it out with. So I can't fit a ton of grain in this thing, but I mean, I can probably get maybe 100 pounds or so, I'm guessing, give or take. Once I've got the hopper full, I can adjust my little slide gate here, and that'll just meter how much grain is allowed to go down into the hammer mill. Just a better view of the slide gate. So that is my new hammer mill. Like I said, this is definitely going to change the way that I can feed my animals. The big difference is going to be being able to buy bulk grain like corn, wheat, or rice. It was probably what I'm going to end up getting because that's what's most readily available in this area. But being able to buy that at wholesale price, now I've got the big tank out here that I can store it in, and I've got the grinder here that I can grind it down into good feed. I think any small farm or ranch should have one of these because you can save so much money doing it that way. And I know something like this probably isn't realistic for everybody just because a lot of fab work goes into making something like this work in your situation. But before I got this, I was actually looking around online a bunch to find one. And a lot of the ones that I found were really expensive, you know, a couple $1,000s. But two things I found that I think are worth noting. Number one, I found this exact same mill, I mean, not this exact one, but the same model, a Minneapolis Moline, it went at auction for $40. So you could probably afford $40 to do something like this. And if you wanted to run it off the flywheel off your tractor, you could totally do that. I mean, that's kind of how these are set up anyway. I just converted this to run on a PTO shaft because I don't have a tractor with an external flywheel like that. The other thing that I found was that at Premier One, they have a smaller, much smaller than this, but it's a little hammer mill that runs off of a 110 outlet, you know, standard household outlet. And like I say, I'm sure the capacity is a lot lower. I'm sure it is a lot slower, but it would do the job, you know. And I think they were only asking around $600 for it, which is a lot of money, but it will pay for itself probably within a year if you raise pigs or chickens or anything like that. If you're buying grain at a feed store to feed your animals, you should seriously look into one of these and mixing up your own feed. Now, one last thing. If the idea of mixing up your own feed is intimidating to you, you don't think you're going to do it right or whatever, it's really not as hard as you think. Most feeds they consist of probably 2 or 3 main ingredients. Usually you have soybean meal, whatever your grain is. Typically that's corn. Like for me, I can use rice because that's available to me, or wheat. And then you need to add some vitamins and minerals. But as far as getting the ratios right to get the protein content that you're after, that is not hard either. And when I get my pigs and start mixing my feed, I'll show you guys how to do that. Thanks for hanging out in the shop with me today, guys. I've got a few more pieces that I need to get this thing, and we are going to fire it up and take it on its first test run in who knows how many years. Thanks for hanging out in the shop with me today, guys. I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.